Hi, everyone. My name is Austin Nauert. I am the Senior Film Programming Conference Manager here at South by Southwest, and I've been waiting for way too long to say this, but welcome back to South by Southwest. It's so great to be here with everyone, and we're just thrilled that we can all gather here again in Austin, Texas in March, so I hope everyone's enjoying themselves so far. A bit of housekeeping before we get started. Our Q&A will be done virtually via Slido. You can go into our app, look up the session, and click Engage, and then add your questions, and we'll get to those during the session. And real quick, before we start, I just wanted to say that we think this is kind of a perfect session to kick things off here on Friday. It really is, it's a convergence of tech and entertainment, which is one of our favorite things here. And on top of that, Upload was supposed to world premiere here in 2020, and unfortunately did not get the chance to do that. So we think it is perfect to have Greg back here with Amy on the day that season 2 launches on Prime Video. So if you haven't started watching season 2 yet, maybe do that in your hotel rooms tonight. So before we kick things off, we're going to throw it to a trailer for season 2, and then Greg and Amy are going to come on stage. So everyone, enjoy.
3, 2, 1, upload.
I notice you're really lonely and sad, and you often express your feelings as anger.
F you, Helen.
Welcome to Upload, your digital afterlife.
Uploads live a life of luxury, pleasure, but they lack something that makes death worth living. Prototypes!
Congrats, Mommy.
Welcome back, Nora Anthony.
Thanks. It's been a long time.
Next.
I got so much to tell you. We've had one extremely difficult camera.
Let me speak to a manager.
What seems to be the problem?
You're a moron.
You've been cheating on me.
Ingrid gave up everything and uploaded for me.
I'm with someone too.
I've been cheating on you.
Oh, it's all good, brother. That was weird.
So weird.
Uploading should be accessible for everyone. We need to hold the greedy, powerful people accountable.
He likes Bloody Marys and the rollback of environmental laws.
Well, we can handle one of those.
We're taking this place over. Oh, it's on!
Thank you.
Place your bets.
You can listen in on any upload.
Do me.
Oh my God, look at her. She's so beautiful.
Anything else about me?
You were considering bicep inflation.
A little bigger. Just a little more. Perfect. It's so ridiculous.
Hello, everyone. It is so exciting to be together in person. This is your first South by, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be March 2020.
So it's your first time. This is South by's 35th anniversary. I think I've been coming for like 20 years. So it is cool to be back.
Yes, very cool.
So I have to say, it seems like maybe you were a few years early to the metaverse party.
Yeah.
Right? With this show. Can you maybe talk a little bit about, I mean, it's kind of what the uploads are living in, right?
Yeah, no, totally. And everybody's, wearing the goggles and in the world of the show, the 5 or 6 biggest tech companies, Horizon is the one that we've called our tech company, which is kind of funny since Facebook is now, or Meta is now, calling their portal Horizon. But they all have built out these beautiful digital experiences based on luxury hotels, and people can visit in VR on some of the floors, and then on others of the floors, people's entire consciousnesses are uploaded, and they're they only exist as avatars in this world. And the tech companies that run the world make money off them every possible which way that they can.
Right, so that's one of the themes, right? It is, and that was, first of all, if you have not seen this show, season 1 is spectacular, and I got to see season 2 early, and it is also unbelievably spectacular. The weather's supposed to not be great tonight, so you should, if you're looking for something to do and you don't want to wait on a line, get yourself some tacos and a Topo Chico and like hole up in your room and watch the show. So, so there are some themes. So some of it has to do with freemium versions of the afterlife, right, and paid and corporate versions.
Yeah, so I had this idea a really long time ago, and the genesis of the idea was that if you could digitize your memories and you could be hosted as a person somehow in a digital environment, it's an opportunity for people to create what I was thinking, oh, it's like heaven, but you create your own heaven. So what would that be like? It would, you know, have all of the same greed and foolishness that any society created by man has. But as you see that the metaverse is being created in front of our eyes, and we're having to make decisions about what are the rules and, you know, what's the society going to be like, you realize that's kind of what the show's about, because you know, it's been created in a completely capitalistic way on the show, and is only for people who can afford it.
So we'll definitely come back to that in a moment, but I love, you've got this story you told me about being outside of 30 Rock when you were a writer on SNL and walking by.
Yeah, that's where I got the idea. This is
well,
so
it's
long
a great
ago.
story, so tell it.
Well, 30 Rock in New York is next to where all the electronic stores are, and I'm walking around trying to think of a sketch idea, and I go past all these electronic stores, and this is how long ago they were advertising CD players as the new thing. So it was all about digitizing music and that. Anyway, but the notion of digitizing your memories and that is probably a science fiction staple. But the thing that the thing that made me so excited about it was this. It's a great satiric premise because it's all about people creating something that you bring to the notion of heaven ideas about fairness that would not be there if it was created by a tech company for money. And so that's where I thought the satire would come in.
I have never taken a walk in New York and gotten from electronic shop to a version of heaven where, so it's amazing that your brain works that way. But you also said that you watched your daughter playing a crazy.
Well, yes.
I mean, so there's like two things that happen here, right?
Well, the initial notion was kind of sci-fi, straight sci-fi. And then my daughter was playing Club Penguin. Do you guys remember that? I don't know if that's still around.
Old school.
And she came up to me and said, I need 99 cents to put a television set in my igloo. And I was like, all right, so you want 99 cents of real money to get a completely digital TV in your igloo. And you know, I just realized that's what it would all be about, probably.
It was I mean, that's like, it's kind of, I mean, I guess it's not creepy now, as I'm saying this out loud, because I have an 11-year-old, and she's constantly asking for upgrades for Minecraft, but I don't know, it's like
people are spending millions of dollars getting real estate rights in the metaverse now. Yeah.
You know, do you know that there's something called the Metaflower Super Mega Yacht? It's a cartoon Minecrafty looking boat. 650,000 American dollars somebody spent on it. So there you go.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get back to capitalism. So you maybe have this sense that we currently have a problem with have and have-nots and ownership and data that maybe follows us into the afterlife. I mean, it's the opening of South by. That is a very grim way to think about the future.
I like to say to the crew that the show Upload is not a dystopian look and it's not a utopian look. It's a comedy show, so there's a mix. And to me, the most fundamental law of the universe is the law of unintended consequences, which strikes me as funny a lot of the times because people, you know, are attempting to do these amazing things, and then you find out later that, oh, that that happened to destroy independent journalism. Oops, you know, or whatever it is. So I'm looking at the funny side of it, and the intention of the show is to be entertaining, obviously, and some aspects of the concept are really intense, I think, from an entertainment standpoint. For instance, there's a love story between a living person and a person who she can only relate to digitally. And she is a person who is struggling to find the means to upload her dad, who's got vape lung, because in the future, vaping's terrible for you, which is something we called on the show before the studies came out. So, you know, and the person who is uploaded, who's played by Robbie Amell, Nathan, in our show, he was living a pretty entitled life in LA as a coder, and you know, gets the second chance through being uploaded after he's basically killed in a self-driving car accident. So he gets a second chance to kind of develop a more compassionate, grounded personality, and with this new woman.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think I really like about the show is that it's set in the future. So it's set about 10 years in the future?
Yeah, it's set in now it would be 2034.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a futurist, as a quantitative futurist, my job is actually not to make predictions, it's to make preparations. So we use data, we build models, and we come up with trends, and then sort of model out what could happen next. So, you know, I found myself watching that first season and being uncomfortable, but in a good way. I mean, I think that's the mark of a really great scenario or a really great story, is that it starts from a place of plausibility, but you push to the edge of plausibility.
Yeah, I got your books yesterday, and I was reading some of your scenarios. Yeah, no, and I think we're obviously mining the same territory. I mean, for research, we spent a lot of time like poring over what products were coming out at CES and just imagining, okay, if that exists, what is a small improvement to it, or what would life be like if it was widespread? And so, like, for instance, 3D printing is very big. I thought I was exaggerating in the pilot by having them 3D print steaks to eat.
I mean, I think we're a little far away from the printing, but
no, but they do. They
growing in a bioreactor
now.
Yeah,
that's a thing. People are texting me constantly, like, oh, that configuration of seats that you did as a joke, where on an airplane you're seated in everybody's lap, like in stacks. They're considering that now.
They are. I've actually seen. Have you seen what those chairs look like?
I don't know. I'm going to be sitting in one eventually. I don't need to preview it.
No, it's really bad. So like I saw a prototype of seats where you're kind of seated like this the entire time.
Well, to me, I was saying, well, how could you maximize the profitable, you know, packing people in? Because of the way you sit, there is another. You could nest it like stackable chairs.
You totally could.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you work for an airline, you've heard that from us here. And there you go, free idea, literally never do that. So there's another theme in here. So again, one of the things that I think is clever is you've got rich people's, you know, amazing afterlife opportunity. Part of the premise of the show is that somebody was trying to open source the afterlife, and make it a little less corporate.
Yeah.
Right?
So Nathan was programming. So Nathan's in the show. We find out he's been murdered. His car didn't actually crash on its own, and the reason he was murdered is he was doing he was coding a like open source version of the Upload metaverse, and so people murdered him. And so part of the show is a murder mystery to find out who's behind it and why. And
yeah, I mean, so obviously we won't disclose what happened, but again, I think asking some of these fundamental questions. I mean, I think in the real world we think about data and ownership and concentrations of power, and you know, it's so compelling that we're applying these same questions to death. I mean, death is something most people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about it. And you're exploring death from a...
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that in the show, it's like we also refer to it as digital life extension. Mm-hmm. And it does change society because people, are encouraged, like the same way people are encouraged to save for retirement, in our show, they're encouraged to save money for their digital life extension.
Right.
And in terms of like the religious implications of it, you can look at it like Nora, the young woman character, is a huge proponent of it, and she looks at it like any sort of medical procedure. Like you wouldn't argue against open heart surgery. You wouldn't say that's the devil's work or whatever. You would just be happy to extend your life. And so, from her point of view, this is a form of life extension.
But somebody's got to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right, so that's actually
something. You know what we talk about in the room a lot? Like, I don't know if you guys know this, there's this thing about printer speeds, right? So there's different market segments to sell printers, but it doesn't, it's not cost effective for the company to actually make different printers. So they make the fastest printer, and then they slow it down for the cheaper printers. Mm-hmm. And so that just incentivizes people to pay extra for the fastest printer.
Well, but in the show...
But my point being...
Yeah.
My point being is once you build the place, adding floors in our world, adding another 1,000 floors for, low-income uploads would be not a huge extra cost.
Right, but it costs somebody, right? So so you die, and unless you have sort of a digital death trust fund, right? We think of trust funds for the living or the people that you leave behind, and like in this world, if you die, somebody has to keep paying for you, otherwise you...
Yeah, or you'd have to have insurance. I mean, there's so many interesting things. Now, one of the laws that we put into the show is that uploads can't work, because if they worked, they would unfairly compete with living people who need to, feed their families and everything. So that's a feature in an ongoing way in the show. As in, should they be allowed to work? Should they be allowed to vote? Should they be allowed to testify in a lawsuit? So there's a lot of questions about what constitutes a person, and in the same time, all the service roles in this digital hotel are occupied by the same AI avatar, and that AI is getting more and more sophisticated as the seasons go on. And so then there's also going to be the question of when do they have to be treated like a person. Mm-hmm. So it's super fun show to work on.
So I want to ask you a little bit about how do you guys get to those places? But I want to go back to something that you mentioned before that. So, if you have insurance or you have a means to pay for your afterlife, that's great, and you can live, a wonderful life. But if the bills don't get paid, you kind of go offline.
Oh, right? Yeah. Well,
there's talk about the 2 gig people in the basement.
Yeah, sure. So
I mean, it's clever and it's horrible.
Yeah, so what happens at the end of season, I don't want to give too many spoilers if you haven't seen it, but there is this level of service that's deliberately crappy in the way that the printer companies are deliberately making slower versions. It's called 2 gig, and it's a pay-as-you-go. You get 2 gigs of data per month, like a phone plan of that kind. And when you run out of data, you just freeze until the beginning of the next month. And so this is a feature for people. So if you can't afford like the full experience up at the hotel, you basically live in the basement and you try and conserve your data. You try not to think too hard, so you don't use it up.
Okay, so let's talk about how do you get so as you're thinking about the future, when I do this, I mostly work with companies, but I do some work on films and shows. I've got primary research. My team is trying to connect the dots. We map out what if. We've got all these frameworks and tools because we're businessy. What's your process? So how you know?
Well, I think that if you don't do research, then the writing of a TV show, you just end up being stereotypical because you're writing out of memories of old TV shows that you've seen. So I used to do this show, King of the Hill, set in Austin. I mean, we used to come to Austin, set in Texas, set in Arlen. But every year I took the writing staff to Austin, and we had little reporters' notebooks, and we would fan out, and we'd go to middle schools, and we'd go to all the locations that were present in the show and look for story ideas and talk to people. And so we got a lot of story ideas for things that we never would have known about if we hadn't done the research. And so, like, this show, Upload, is set in 2034, so how do you do research in 2034? You read stuff like your reports. I'm on all sorts of futurism websites, consumer electronics. Because the show's on Amazon, I have access to a lot of the special Amazon experts. I've talked to their cybersecurity team.
You just port directly into AWS and just see the matrix. Is that how it works?
Yeah, exactly.
And then how do I get to do that? Is there a way?
You get to watch the show, and it's all boiled down for you in an entertaining way.
Wonderful.
But
okay, so you do research.
So yeah, you do research, and so the new world, the world that I'm trying to present is, one version of what it might be like in 2034. Yeah.
Right. So I imagine myself sitting in your writer's room around an enormous table. You've got all these possible...
Well, right now it's on Zoom.
You're on a Zoom.
So it's not that hard to imagine.
But you have all of these different tendrils. I mean, you could chase after climate change, supply chain. You've got all these different things. How do you prioritize what you want to focus on?
Well, basically, you have to say what the themes of the show are, right? So I started off saying, I know it's going to be income inequality because, you're talking about heaven for rich people. I mean, the theme has to be partly that. And I also really wanted to have environmental degradation be a theme, because I felt like, okay, the digital world in the show Upload it's set at there's a real life hotel in upstate New York called Mohonk Mountain House.
Right, we've been there.
Yeah. And it's
beautiful.
It's very beautiful, and it's all the fall foliage and everything, and so that's where the digital world is. And then Nora lives in Queens and works in Brooklyn and is going through New York. And my supposition is that in the future, if people are all saving their money for this digital afterlife, they're not going to be investing in their lawns and in the upkeep of the real world. So that's going to get crappier and crappier. That's one thought. And so I really wanted to show that. Like, isn't it ironic that if you really want to experience natural beauty and birds, because in the first version of the show, there were no birds in the future. They'd all died for some reason, and you could only hear bird songs in Lakeview. But unfortunately, or not I don't know, but the hard part about that theme is that you have to shoot in the real world, and you can hear birds when you're shooting. And we shot in Vancouver, and there's beautiful trees all over the place in Vancouver. So it was hard to make the point that the world was completely, devoid of birds. So that theme kind of isn't in the show as much as I wanted it to.
Can I tell us no if the answer is no? But can I ask you about the cutting room floor with the seeds that got planted?
Oh yeah, sure.
That was such a poignant.
Well, there was something in season 1. We had a scene where Nora goes down an alleyway to this door, knocks on the door. There's a furtive exchange of money for a paper bag, and it looks like a drug sale. And she has bought an actual green pepper that wasn't printed, like an actual grown vegetable, and she's very excited to eat it. And then she takes the seeds and plants them in cracks of the sidewalk. And then later we have a drone come by from Monsanto, and they laser all the seeds to make sure that they don't grow. So that was a sequence that we ended up cutting. But.
So we know that income inequality is a theme. environmental degradation as a theme. I think universal basic health care, it sounds like, is maybe also something you're exploring.
Yeah, I mean, not intentionally, but once you create this premise that people are saving up to go live in a digital world later that is going to be run by companies, all these other things pop out, because then you go, well, all right, well, what if you can't afford that? Well, there's going to be people in society that are arguing for universal digital afterlife, which would be our version of like universal health care or something. And yeah, so I don't know. If you accept the premise and you're looking into the future, all these things pop up. And now, like this morning, I went to a great panel on the metaverse, and I was like, oh yeah, well, we're doing that. Oh yeah, we're doing that. Oh, I got to remember to do that. All these things that they were worried about actually, happening in the near term.
Right. So the way that you get to the afterlife if you're living is, there are a couple of options. Can you talk us through what they are?
Well, listen, this is all stuff I made up, right? So this happens in the writer's room too. The writers go, so wait, how does this work?
But it's also kind of
but it may not be anything like this. But I'll tell you, the thing that I pictured is that there's a machine, and it has a rotating shutter system like a movie camera, and it has an incredibly bright light, and it's based on photography. And every time the shutter passes over, a different layer of skin cells is burned off by this light and photographed. And it happens really fast, and it just goes like this, and it takes your head off.
Yep.
And every possible molecular combination has been now photographed in an analog way. And then the photographs are used to recreate your brain with all of the spin of each molecule somehow in a big computer. And but part of the reason why I did it that way was I wanted it to have some sort of analog basis, so that they weren't able to just go ahead and read your thoughts and everything. Like, they weren't 100% sure how it worked. Like, the software took the photographs and then started to operate it, and then your brain would sort of come back alive, and the digital versions of all the neurons and blah, blah, blah would operate according
blah, blah, blah,
to
science. It works.
Science,
Just trust us.
It would operate according to physical laws, but but it wasn't like somebody could program it and see lines of code that meant your brain was whatever. I don't know. I'm way over my head here,
It completely makes sense.
Yeah. But my job is to be a TV writer, right? I don't have to invent the actual code that makes it work.
Yet. But the people who want to commune with those who are uploaded now, they're wearing glasses.
So basically, once the metaverse is now hosted, and the way I think about it is like, a game engine or something. It's a big game engine, and the avatars that are uploaded are walking around with huge lumps of code embedded in them that are running their personalities, and the other avatars are kind of empty, because they're the brains behind those avatars are sitting somewhere in a living room with VR Oculuses on, but they're still able to talk to their dead relatives,
right,
in the metaverse.
So it's wearable technologies, right? So which exists. I mean, again, it's the way that you're getting people to talk to each other through the embodied internet is, that's what's being built now. So it's
actually, when you're in a Lakeview type metaverse,
and remind us what
Lakeview is. Lakeview is the name of the hotel that the Horizon company hosts, where Nathan has uploaded, and it's very much designed for wealthy boomers who have died, because it's sort of like Ralph Lauren design scheme, which kind of irritates some of the younger people.
It's overly unnecessarily fancy.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's supposed to sort of, they know who their audience is, and they're trying to feed into that audience's dream of what an afterlife would be. But other companies in the future have different ones. So Apple has one, which is more of a beach, like a beach in Thailand themed thing, and Disney Eternity, we call it, is Eternity on its giant cruise ship.
Yep. And if you're a resident of Lakeview, you can't go to Disney.
You have to download onto a big clunky hard drive, and then be physically moved over and stuck in the Disney system. And part of that is, and that's just, again, this is all made up.
But it's not. It's not made up because the metaverse is currently not interoperable in any conceivable way.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody talks about it being open, but it's really not.
Well, there's certain like red line things in my version of the future so that it would be incredibly difficult if you could, I mean, once somebody's digital, you can copy them, right? So that has a host of weird implications. So we sort of baked in that there's a law against copying them. So if you want to leave one metaverse and go to the other one, you have to come all the way off that metaverse onto this drive.
And hope that nothing goes wrong.
And hope that it doesn't nobody spills iced tea on
outside.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And then you get shoved into another drive. And, you know, there's a scene in the first season where he goes to preview all the other, you know, digital afterlives or metaverses, and his mom basically plugs him into this this weird contraption at a travel agency, so he can kind of get an overview of some of the other options.
Yeah, I thought that was a really brilliant way of thinking through how that might play out in the future and having sort of an afterlife travel agent.
Yeah,
was
well, you
really
want to hear a story about that? So that was kind of funny because originally in the script, he actually went to all the different ones. And so we have, all right, in our version of the future, Panera Bread is the dominant company for some weird reason. And they bought Facebook. And so Panera Facebook has a digital afterlife that's modeled on a Las Vegas hotel. And so we scouted a hotel, I mean, not a hotel, sorry, casino. We scouted a casino in Vancouver, and we, you know, and anyway, so it was gonna cost like an extra $200,000 or something to have him actually go to the casino, actually go to the beach hotel and everything. And at the time we were, you know, up there in cost, it's an expensive show. So I got the message from Amazon, think about another way we could do this, please. So then we had the idea of this digital travel agency, and as soon as he wants to preview another place, all of the walls and furniture become transparent, and he's like floating above the other place, right? That ended up costing $600,000 in VFX, but
totally worth it though.
But it got pushed down the line, so it was approved.
So, but here's what I thought it was an ingenious storytelling, but it was also kind of poignant. I remember feeling a little sad because his mother is not super wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. So some of that decision.
So she's arguing for the cheapest one, the one that nobody wants, which is like an endless safari, just out on the plains, listening to the hyenas barking and stuff like that.
But we already do this. I mean, when you lose a loved one, if you don't have everything really spelled out in advance, you know, this is kind of a thing that everybody goes through, at least in the United States. You have to make decisions, which casket, which process, you know, and that is done on a cost basis.
Yeah, well, the worst thing is if you have to make decisions about healthcare.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we've been talking a lot about Upload, which is terrific, but I want to keep
doing it. I think everybody's loved it.
And we'll just keep doing that. We will pivot and talk about the Memory Palace.
You've got your own panel next week.
I've got it on Sunday. Let's talk about the Memory Palace.
Yes. Okay.
And then I'm going to ask you a question about the tech in Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the Memory Palace.
Okay. So one of the things that we baked into the season 1 of the show is that after this whole burning of the head, your memories exist in a .mem file. Like there's millions of them, and they're viewable by the customer service reps until they're put back into your avatar. So, and this again is completely made up, but so I had Nora make.
And Nora,
Nathan's avatar.
Nora, so the uploaded people have angels, but the angels are just customer service reps.
Yeah.
And Nora is one of those customer service reps.
Yes.
And so.
And she has multiple parts of her job, and she has to appear in the digital world whenever she's requested, and help out the spoiled and entitled uploads. But one of her jobs, the one that she likes the best, is that she builds the avatars for the dead people. And I don't know, again, made up, but I felt like in order for the uploaded person to have a sense of themselves in their avatar, she goes through all their memories looking for times that they looked at themselves in the mirror, and then sort of dragging those images and building the avatar out of that so that the person develops like an authentic feeling of themselves from the views that they've seen of themselves, blah, blah, blah. So, but it's an opportunity for her to view his memories and then find out that some of his memories did not survive the upload process, which is part of the mystery story, because somebody is screwing around and deleting some of his memories. Yeah.
So let's just say I'm a 1%er super billionaire, and I can afford Lakeview. And I feel, and I've spent my entire mortal life, alive life, being at the top of my game and making decisions and sort of being the master of my domain. I'm now in the poshest digital metaverse afterlife that exists. I have no privacy, though, right?
Well, the question of privacy is something that came up because, you're doing fiction. Someone is trying to investigate a murder, but is on a digital platform that's hosted by the people that probably murdered him. And how do you do that, right? So the way I say we do it is that there's too much data for them to record and monitor it constantly. You have to press something. And what I was using was, I think when you play Call of Duty or when you play a online game, that they're not recording every instant of it because it would be too much, I think. You guys probably know better than me. But so my feeling is they're not recording every possible instant unless someone actually presses record somewhere.
Right.
Because it would be too much. I do know, I did get a tour of Activision, also part of researching this, and saw the engines and everything that they used. And I remember one of the interesting parts was that when you're playing the game and you look away from something, it ceases to exist. They don't bother to continue it because they would use too much energy. And then when you look back, they reconstitute it. So. Right.
So I think, it's what I observe. Look, I love your work. So you've created all of these worlds, all of these universes, and I think that there are some central themes. I think ultimately, it's always about the people, though, right? So this is a show that has a ton of tech in it, but it's still about people. And,
yes.
Right?
Yes, it is.
And you're observing those. It's also about observation.
I'm not very good at this interviewing thing.
No, you're doing great.
Yes.
You're doing great.
It is about people.
We're going to power through.
Yeah, well, it's fiction, right? And there's an aspect of it where this is fiction that's set in the future. It's science fiction and everything, but it still has to, follow the laws of fiction, if there are some. And this is actually, I can get on a little soapbox about what kinds of science fiction that I like.
Let's do that. So I know that we both like Asimov.
Sure, but what I think is I also would consider Harry Potter science fiction, and I like it when it's colorful and you don't even notice that it's fantasy. Really, you're sort of drawn into, oh my God, what's going to happen to Harry or Nathan and Nora going to get together? That's the part. And yet it's set in a completely imaginary environment that's very fanciful and fun. That's really fun to me. But There is some, you know, I said to the production designer, like, I don't want it to have like a greenish light all the time and people in white robes are running through aluminum halls and, you know, I don't know. There's plenty of that already.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be kind of beautiful.
Yeah. So let's go back to the science fiction stuff for a moment, because I mean, at the end of Parks and Rec, I don't think I'm spoiling anything at this point, but it's set in the future, and so there is a lot of
There's a flash forward.
Little bit of sci-fi flicked into that. There was definitely some sci-fi here and there with The Office and some of your previous work. So
Lisa's Wedding.
Lisa's Wedding. Talk about that. That's a great story.
Yeah. Well, I wrote the episode of The Simpsons called Lisa's Wedding, and it's a flash forward, and what that gives you is future jokes. Mm-hmm. But in that episode, I wanted to really play the poignancy of all of her family being older and her having kind of matured, and it's like her choice whether or not to include her dad. And there's a lot of poignancy in time passage. Mm-hmm. And there's, I think, also a lot of poignancy in Upload in the sense that there's people, it's, you know, it's about, can you save people who are dying? What happens to the people that you love after death? Can that somehow be salvaged?
And what happens if you don't love people, but you still have to have a relationship with them after death?
Yeah, that's a piece of comedy, yes.
Yeah.
Endless in-laws.
Yeah. Right, so I guess, you know, how does, so I know you've got like you've read a lot of weird sci-fi, so like you have an interesting reading background, right? And didn't you want to, I don't want to out you here, but didn't you used to want to work for the New York Times?
I wanted to work for Science Times, which was the Tuesday science supplement of the New York Times. When I was in high school, that was my dream job.
Why was that? So you and I had weird dream jobs as kids. Mine was I wanted to be Solicitor General.
Yeah. We had a brief talk before this, and I identified that Amy is basically Leslie Knope. So.
I think so. I concur. But why science? I mean, that's kind of a strange. Were you like a kid taking bio?
No, I don't know. I just like. I think science is so exciting in, you know, middle school and high school, because you're really getting, you know, I think you can get a vision of it like, oh, every time I go into class, I'm learning about these amazing discoveries. They must come this quickly when you're a scientist, right?
Yeah.
Every week you
absolutely.
must be
that's totally how
discovering
it works.
Important new things,
yep.
Right? I don't know. So I thought, well, maybe the fun part would be to write about them, so you could just kind of drop in on labs just when they were announcing their discoveries, and then next week you'd go to the next lab.
But you're kind of, I mean, you're kind of doing that.
You're doing
right?
that.
Well, I'm doing that.
I'm making TV shows.
But we're kind of doing the same thing, which is we're exploring these, we're pushing our thinking to the edge of plausibility, and we're learning, and we're curious.
Yes.
And we're figuring out what could be next, right?
Yeah, we're imagining things, and we're trying to imagine every detail and what we would feel like in those circumstances. And for me, that's what I did when I was imagining what Hank and Peggy were up to in King of the Hill, and now I'm imagining what Nathan and Nora are up to in 2034. But the interesting thing about imagining it in 2034 is it ties into like everything this festival's about, because I was trying to figure out what to go to this morning, and every single one of them was like, oh, well, this is what's coming next. This is what's coming next. And
there's something interesting also if I look at the corpus, like the body of work that you've done. It's comedy, and Space Force also. So it's comedy, but we're not laughing at these characters. You know, we're empathizing with them and getting a laugh at the same time. So I think of King of the Hill, which is, I think, done in a way that is, done a different way. You might be laughing at these characters in a way that's not good, right?
Well, I think it's important to not lean into stereotypes. I think there's a lot of reasons why, just from a standpoint of fairness and inclusion in society, that's important. But I think also from an artistic standpoint, it's more interesting, and it also is just how I feel about human beings. Like when you get to know people, they are very complicated. There aren't that many people that only do one thing. And so, you know, the shows that I've done are in a tradition of character comedy that I would, you know, go back to Mary Tyler Moore and, you know.
Everybody talks about why Mary Tyler Moore. Every writer that I know.
It's such a great show.
I mean, I agree with you, but tell me why, because that always comes up.
I also worked with Jim Brooks on The Simpsons, so to me, he's a tremendous, you know, icon of a very humanistic way to get comedy out of characters, and you look down on them or, you know, treat them poorly or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that style, and that's kind of the style that I write in, and so.
Yeah. In the future.
Yes.
Do you think that there will be privacy? Will we be able to be private? I mean, you spent the time in the metaverse this morning, and then you know, the show is the metaverse, and.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what they were talking about this morning was pseudonymity, which I thought was
which is what?
A term I didn't really know, but it's like you're not anonymous, and you're not identified. Your avatar develops a reputation that you have to live with, I guess.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. I can't wait for that.
No, it sounded like a good idea. Like, you know, so it would enable you to go to like an online psychiatrist. You might not necessarily know who the person was, but somehow or another they would have
so
their degree or their authentication would be known to you.
Right.
And if other people thought that they were terrible, you might know that reputation, but you wouldn't be able to necessarily go find the person's apartment and knock on their door.
That sends absolute chills down my spine to know that my unit of measure is going to be quantified by some type of algorithmic scoring system.
Yeah.
That strikes me as
well,
what
we do that on the show. Like they have there's one of the aspects of the future that we do in the show, because there's two parts to our show. There's the digital life, which has got its own weird rules, and then there's also New York and LA in the year 2034, because he was from LA, she's from New York, and they have a dating app called Nightly, which is sort of Tinder, but it also is Yelp, because you have to give, after every date, you give somebody 5 stars on their sexuality, their, you know, promptness, you know, and so everybody's walking around with a star rating.
And the customers, the angels get it too, right?
Yes,
so
and they're
constantly soliciting, like Uber drivers, please give me 5 stars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's your idea of heaven. Sir, you have a twisted concept of...
Yeah, the tagline is, it's a hell of a heaven. But...
Okay, so privacy is dead.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what... I mean, God, people seem to be okay with that. I'm not. I'm not on social media at all. But I don't know.
So you're not on social media, but you've created for us a future world.
I just have a writing staff, and I force them to go on.
Good. That sounds good.
Here, let me see your Hinge account.
Can I? There was this is not going to spoil anything, but the first episode of season 2, you see it for like half of a second. It looks like KFC and Twitter have merged.
Yes.
It was awesome.
Well, there are a lot of mergers in the future. Oscar Mayer has merged with Intel.
Yeah.
They're the ones that it's called The Future of Meat, and they're the ones that are preparing, in episode 3, there's a disastrous attempt at downloading one of the uploads back into a meat body that's been prepared by Oscar Mayer Intel. It doesn't go very well.
So are you worried about being surveilled? Like, do you think that is, so I know you're not on socials because, I mean, is it privacy, is it surveillance? Because those are core components of surveillance capitalism, right? Which I think the show is to some degree.
I think it's a troubling thing, yeah. I mean, obviously, that's why I have a tinfoil.
That makes sense.
Underclothes.
Yeah, yeah. When you took the thing off your head before we came on stage, now I get it.
I feel naked without my hat, my tinfoil hat. I don't know. What do you? Is this a good time to pivot to the room? What do you
Yeah.
guys think about privacy and surveillance? Is that an issue?
We have a bunch of questions, so I'm going to ask you a few. Is that cool?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so with my sincere apologies, I do speak other languages, but they are Chinese and Japanese, so this is going to come out horribly. Fabricia Bothello asks, what about future predictions in The Simpsons, which the show is kind of famous for? You know, what's going on with that? Are you tapped into, like?
Well, you know, having worked on The Simpsons and having worked on Upload and seeing that we're doing kind of the same thing, like there's 5 or 6 or 8 things that we predicted, like just as a joke in the pilot, I put Kamala Harris as the vice president. I said Oprah was the president, so I got that wrong. But now Kamala Harris is the president. I think that, you know, the creative process is imagining something that you exaggerate slightly for comedy, and then life comes along and things get exaggerated anyway, and they end up there. And there's some famous quote about history happens the first time is tragedy and the second time is farce. I don't know who said that, but who said that? Karl Marx. Oh, quoting Karl Marx. Excellent.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thought it was Adam Smith. Yeah, so I just think it's, you know, The Simpsons has 700 episodes. Some stuff they're going to get right. I don't think it's, you know, it's supernatural.
Should we take this question from Nathan? See that? So Nathan Smith is asking.
Oh, Nathan, yes.
That's a good one. Has the way that, so by the way, as we're doing this, there's an app called Slido. You should be asking us questions through that app if you're interested. Has the way that you run the writer's room changed very much from King of the Hill to The Office to Parks and Rep and now to Upload?
Well, there have been some changes because of streaming and because of the pandemic. So the writer's rooms that I have on Upload are now, like I have a room for season 3, although we don't have production order yet, but we're preparing for it, and that's been all Zoom.
Well, wait, but you said streaming Zoom or streaming service versus?
Pandemic has made a change in that the last few years, writers' rooms have been on Zoom, which is its own thing. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the changes between reality and Zoom. And then the other thing is that there's small seasons that happen over long periods of time. So the writers are going to be around for 20, 24 weeks, and I work on the show for 2 years. So I only get the writers for like a particular moment, and I have to maximize my use of them. And so, you know.
All right, so let's unpack those two very interesting things. So let's start with the second part. So you work on a show for 2 years. A lot of it's in your head. You're writing, you're taking notes, you're researching. And then you get the writers. What's actually, like, how is that different from when you're doing a sitcom on network? Yeah,
the old style, like for The Office, we would do maybe 28 episodes a year, and that would be in 10 months. And so, and then there'd be pre-production to prepare for it, but we wouldn't know the whole story, we wouldn't know all the scripts. We'd start 6 scripts ahead of where we were filming. But I had also 16 people around for the entire time. 16,
so the cadence is different.
16 great writers. So yeah, so I could delegate. I'd say, you do that, you go check out the set, you go into the edit room, I'll come in and just check it off, and da-da-da. And so there was a bigger thing. And now it's like I have maybe 8 writers, and they're gone by the time production starts. So. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Poor me. I have to work harder.
Well, I mean, is that... well, but the question is
Let's get
something...
to some of the more interesting ones.
No, we're going to stick on this for 2 seconds.
All right.
So, because I think there are people here who are here because they admire you and they want to be writers.
Yes.
So the question is, has streaming changed how this whole thing works?
Yes, I think it has. I think it's a little bit more like the way they do television in the UK. Like in the UK, they would do 6-episode seasons. You'd do maybe 2 of them in a special, and then that would be the end of your. That's the original Office, was 2 6-episode seasons and a Christmas special, and that's it. And what that lends itself to is people write the whole thing themselves. They don't have staffs. So, you know, people in England were always so interested to ask me, what's it like to have a writing staff? I have to do the whole thing myself. But The other thing is, I think it's easier to get a show on.
Yeah.
Because if you have an idea, every 14 episodes, they need a new TV show. So I think it's opened it up. It's a little bit easier to get your vision across, but then they don't last as long.
I know that so we've been virtual too, so all of our staff meetings and all of our, we're doing strategic scenarios over Zoom, which is not, it's challenging. Has the creative process been hard on Zoom? I mean, does that change the dynamics at all when you're trying to?
Well, it depends on your personality. I don't like being looked at. No
Sorry,
offense,
this has been
offense,
a horrible hour for you.
But when you're doing Zoom, the writers sit there and stare at you. And when I used to do, I was always lying on the floor. That was the thing that writers laugh about me, is I'll be lying on the floor looking at the ceiling and just talking so that I don't have to see someone's gaze on me.
So you've had a hard couple of years.
Yeah.
Let alone now this. All right. We have a question about what do you think about the possibility of uploading and downloading skills? So
like
maybe
Matrix.
This is like the Matrix.
I know something in.
I know Kung Fu.
Yeah, I don't know. Gosh, I mean that would be super convenient.
What would you, if you could upload and download?
Kung Fu.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Okay. There's a question for me from Greg Swan. How realistic is it for us to have digital mind twins at the caliber like we see in Upload? What factors are you tracking that could create this scenario? There are lots of people working on this now. I think the challenge is that once you upload to a different place, then you're making new memories in that place. But I think if there are multiple iterations of you, or you've got multiple synthetic versions of you and there's a fork that happens because you're creating and learning new things in the real world, and that doesn't necessarily translate over. So I think
what do you think the stages of tech that you would need
to get to that place?
To get to Upload? Because I feel like you would need to know how the brain operates at a level that we don't know right now, right? You'd need to be able to record it at a moment in time, and then you would need to have some sort of software that could recreate how it works in an ongoing way, right?
Right, so creating a synthetic rendering of a person, we can do that now. You can use Unreal Engine. It's the squishy computer inside of our head, the brain. That's the real challenge.
You'd have to know how that works, right?
You would have to know how that works. We don't. And if you were consciously a part of that process, you would probably be doing it aspirationally. So like the uploaded version of you would be way hotter than the actual you, potentially?
I started this show, and I thought to myself, okay, uploading, like putting drones in, I'm putting all the tech in that we have. Uploading is the only thing that we don't have, but I'm pretty sure we'll have it soon. And then my daughter's in medical school, and she was looking at one of her lectures over the break about the blood-brain barrier and the various chemicals that cross the barrier and how they cross it. And I watched it for 3 minutes, and I was like, oh, forget it. Never. We're never going to have this. This is so complicated, and we don't know hardly anything.
Yeah. So it would be hard, but not implausible. Just impossible right now.
But I mean, the funny thing about your job and my job is if you're going to imagine the future, you're going to be embarrassed, because like they've been saying we're having flying cars since the Jetsons.
No, they've been saying that the original patent for a flying car was filed in 1919.
Yeah.
We've been trying to build flying cars.
Yeah, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was before the Jetsons.
Even before that.
Yeah.
And do you know how many seasons of the Jetsons actually, do you know how long it ran?
No.
Most people don't. It was created for an adult. It was created for adults. It ran one season, 1962 to 1963. And what's fascinating, that car had such an indelible mark. You can say Jetsons car globally, and people know what that is, even if they haven't seen the show.
Yeah, we've been waiting for a long time for that.
We have. All right. What else do we need to know? Because we're at the end.
Well, we need to, I will thank you for being a great partner, and I can't wait to finish reading your books that I downloaded.
Thank you. And I have no upload funny thing to say back, but you should all watch it.
There you go. That's all that was needed.
You should all watch the show. Legit, it's really good. I have one other request before we leave, and that is this. This conference is being produced under extraordinarily difficult circumstances, so I want you to please, when you see a person working for South by, tell them that you appreciate them.
Tip your waitress.
Tip your waitress. They are under a lot of stress. So please, when you see them, just tell them you appreciate them and that you're grateful to be here, because I know I am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.